All right, we're back for another episode of Bull in the Basement as we talk to people who have relationships with Western New York and have gone on and done great things with their lives, things with meaning and impact. And this gentleman is no different. He is from Grand Island native and was class of 90. Is that right, Carlin?
Class of 1990. Yeah.
Class of
Yeah.
1990. And now
35 years ago.
right? And now he can
Yeah.
call himself a national champion. Carlin Hartman is the associate head coach of the national champion Florida Gators basketball team. You can't see it in the shot, but he is sporting his Gator gear. And I'm assuming, Carlin, that you're wearing Gator gear on the regular these days.
Yeah. You know what's funny is since we got back last week, I went out one time to grab a pizza. And by the way, the pizza here is not as good as back home. Uh, still edible, but not good. So I go
Right.
out to grab a pizza, and a couple of people noticed who I was. And so I did have on a hoodie. And they say, Coach, congratulations, great job. You're coming back next year, right? And it happened like 3 or 4 times in one day. And so I stopped actually wearing Gator gear out and about, just so they can't put two and two together.
Oh,
But
that's so
I'll
good.
take the alternative.
That's so good. You were an excellent basketball player in high school. You went on to Tulane, and I'm assuming you have great love for New Orleans. I've had the great opportunity to have been there a number of times, and one of my favorite places on the planet. And I'm sure you, when leaving there, thought the same. And I would assume in your spare time, when you get a chance, you go back.
Yeah, whenever I get a chance, normally it's for alumni functions.
Sure.
The last couple times I've been back has been for celebrations. Our 1992 Metro Conference regular season and tournament title team was honored for the 91-92 team, and then I was honored individually as a Hall of Famer in 2023. So I've gone back a couple of times for like special occasions like that. I don't get back as often as I like, but every time I do, it's for a good reason, and I love New Orleans.
For sure, for sure. Then from there, you continue your basketball playing career in the CBA. And Carlin, I can tell you, I am a Rochester native, and my first ever internship was with the Rochester Zeniths in the
Oh my
CBA back in the day. And I don't know if you know
God.
this. They played in an arena called the Dome Arena. It was a concrete floor, and the basketball
Huh.
court, I'm not kidding you, was a tape lined felt cover on the concrete floor there. That was their basketball court. It was
Oh
insane.
my.
And the talent level was fantastic even back then. So a pretty high level and sort of like the early version of what is now sort of like the G League, I suppose.
Correct. Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I remember the Albany Patroons. I don't remember the
Yeah.
team out of Rochester. I
Yeah,
remember the
well,
Albany
I
team.
mean, I'm just dating myself. I'm a little bit older than you, so needless to say, they were a good team for a long. They get some guys from Bonaventure on those teams, and they were a good team. So I gotta get to now from there. You
Mhm.
decide you play a few years in the CBA. Now you got a decision to make, right? So now you got to decide: do I continue my pro career? Do I go back to school? Do I become, because you went to college, your major's broadcast journalism, I think, right? And so do
Yes,
you
it
do you
was.
become like a guy like me or Mike Show, or do you become a coach? So how did, now 30 years later you look back, how did this all begin in the coaching realm for you?
Yeah, what's funny is I didn't want my career to end. Actually, I
Sure.
tore my ACL. I tore my ACL and ACL and MCL. Halfway through my third year, I was playing in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I just came from camp that summer with the Mavericks, and I'm thinking, okay, I got a chance, maybe get a call up, and then 20 games into the year, I blew my knee out. So, and back then, this is like 1997, and back then was almost like a death sentence, when you tore your leg or tore your knee. And so I knew I was going to have a long rehab process. It wasn't like I had tons of resources with our team and the CBA there. So I actually came back home to the Buffalo, had my surgery at Buffalo General, rehab for quite some time. Um, just it wasn't really, taking the way it needed to take. So long story short, that's when I decided to start to reach out to coaches that either had recruited me or I played against when I was at Tulane. So fast forward to the summer of 1998, I get a chance to work with my old AU coach, Mickey Walker, out of Syracuse. And he says, "Come on to Las Vegas with me. You'll get a chance to see a lot of the coaches that you desire to see, and you'll help me out with our team." And so, like, Damone James was on that team, and a couple other area guys from Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester. And back then, Mickey was the guy before EYBL started. So I got a chance to do exactly what he said. I helped him coach the team and also reconnected with a lot of coaches. I got a job offer, Rice University, that summer. I started in August of that year, and I've been in the coaching industry ever since.
What was your first job description for your first coaching job? Like what were you tasked to do when you first break in?
Yeah, funny. Like, so back then, my title was assistant coach, but I was a what they call a restricted earnings coach. So back then, the head coach and the one, two, three others, two other assistants were the only three coaches that were accountable coaches that can go out and recruit and also be of full-time status. So I was a third assistant, and I was the bottom of the totem pole. I made $18,000 in my time as restricted earnings coach, but it was an opportunity to still carry the title of a coach, have benefits. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm single and by myself. I'm getting $600 every 2 weeks. I can pay my rent. I got a car for free, and so I'm good. I'm good.
Right.
And I did a little bit of everything. I did video exchange back then. I did travel. I did scheduling. I did a whole lot of different things, but also got the opportunity to scout opponents and be a part of a really good team at that point in time in the Rice. So I was very fortunate to get in, even though it was from the ground up. Just having that opportunity at 20, 25 years old to be able to start my coaching career was everything.
And when you did you know it was going to last as long as it has? I mean, did you think then that, I mean, did you fall in love automatically with it, or was it, was it a bit of time before you figured, hey, this is going kind of good. I'm kind of good at it. I'm meeting a
Yeah.
lot of people. Like, how did it kind of, as the timeline goes, how did it kind of go?
Yeah, this is probably a good lesson for a lot of aspiring coaches or people that have a passion in doing whatever they want. I was the restricted earning coach for a year at Rice, and then the next year I left to take a full-time job at McNeese State. And I was just kind of impatient. I probably needed to kind of stay in the position I was at Rice for a little bit longer, even though I wasn't making a ton of money. It was still a better situation. So I go to McNeese. We were also in the rebuilding stage. Didn't have a great year. Also didn't have a great experience. So I actually got out of it for a few years. Did pharmaceutical sales for a couple of years, but then the passion of the sport, basketball, just kept on, pulling at me. Fortunate enough to get back in again at Rice under the same coach, Willis Wilson, who's a mentor of mine to this day. And from there, I stayed in it, and it was awesome. Um, because of the journey. I mean, that's when my journey actually started. It was from that point on, Rice Director of Basketball Operations, got a job at Louisiana Lafayette as full-time assistant, then the University of Richmond for 4 years, moved a little bit in between, James Madison associate coach, Columbia associate coach, back to Rice for third step associate coach, and then I got my big break at Oklahoma back in 2015, where I was there for 6 years under Lon Kruger. And we had some really good teams there with Trey Young and Austin Reeves.
Yeah.
Uh, and then a year at UNLV after Coach Kruger retired, worked out there with his son Kevin Kruger for 1 year. And then these last 3 years, being here at Florida at this elite brand, this elite university with elite resources. And, we've been building it slowly but surely every year. And obviously it culminated into a national championship.
Yeah, for sure. What a great story. And I'm going to go back to Columbia, because I think if anybody that knows anything about you knows that Todd Golden and you first crossed paths, I think, at Columbia, if I'm not mistaken. And then obviously now you are where you are. But before I get back to that, let's talk about this championship team. I remember watching you guys play. I feel like it was either Alabama or did you play Duke in the regular season? No. Okay, it must have been Alabama then.
We played North Carolina in the regular season.
Okay, might have been North. It was North Carolina. Okay, so I'm watching the North Carolina game, and it was just dunk. It was alley oop after alley oop after alley oop. I'm like, man, these guys are ridiculous. And at that point, I thought to myself, man, I mean, they are over the top good in every different position. They're going somewhere, and obviously, you end up doing that. But walk us through, obviously, I think resilience defined your team, especially in the tournament where you saw yourself behind most of the tournament at times, right? And then you end up winning the way you did in such dramatic fashion. And so I want to get to that last play, that last 16 seconds, because the way it played out for me, I felt like you had snuck a mole into the Houston a timeout there because it seemed like you knew exactly where they were going to be and what they were going to do. And somebody saw Kelvin Sampson's clipboard and said, defend that. And boy, did you ever. Walk us through that last 16 seconds.
That's a good call, Rich. I mean, we had just converted 1 or 2 free throws, and that was a big second free throw by Denzel Aberdeen because the difference in, having Houston go down and be able to get a layup for the game-winning basket versus them having to make a decision whether to go for the win or tie the game. And we put our best lineup out there. We put our best defensive lineup out there, our best offensive lineup out there, which are pretty much 1-1. Walter, Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin, Alex Connon, and Thomas Hawk all out there. And quite frankly, to your point, we were on everything in which they diagnosed and tried to do. The first thing was they tried to rip us baseline with Uzan, and Thomas Hawk did a really good job of coming out and hedging the screen and not letting them get anywhere. Then they tried a little snap action run behind for LJ Cryer, and Will Richard did not allow himself to be screened. He got skinny through that thing. He had high hands, no shot allowed, and then he did a good job of tracing the ball once the dribble was picked up. Then the last thing they tried to do was an elevator screen by the 2 Houston bigs. And Emmanuel Sharp, came from the bottom of block, and he came sprinting off that thing. Walt was a tad bit late behind the play, but he did such a really good job of closing out that I think when Sharp was going up to shoot the shot, Walt was there for the contest, and Sharp kind of froze for a second, dropped the ball, thinking that Walt was going to block the shot. And from that point, once he dropped the ball, it had to have been 3.5 seconds on the clock. So by the time everybody realized what was going on, all the Houston players are out of position. Alex Connon sees the ball, and he dives on it. And literally, as he's diving on, the ball's just kind of moving around. I'm on the sideline. I'm just thinking, hold on to the ball. We have possession. So if they tie us up, we're going to get a chance to take this ball out of bounds. Next thing you know, Bull, the horn goes off. I'm like, holy cow, we won. We won. And so to your point, our guys did an excellent job. Actually, the last 4 possessions, Houston turned over in the last 4 defensive possessions. The last 2 were critical because they didn't even get a shot up on the rim. So, we did a great job. Great seniors, great veteran leadership, especially in the backcourt, led by Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah, and our 2 young bigs. They're athletic, they're mobile, and we just did a really good job of being on their scout. Really, really good job of shutting them down.
I got to tell you, I mean, Clayton he was just ridiculous for a kid that had his struggles. Man, did he make big shots at big times. And then, you talk about Elijah just jumping out of the gym on the regular, just unbelievable. And then your bigs, and I want to get to that for a second, because that's kind of the cool thing for me in college basketball now. And you guys have a bunch of them, where now you're seeing with the Cooper Flags, with the Wolf kid at Michigan, with your guys, these 6'10" guys with handles and shots. They're not just guys that are screening and posting up. These are guys that can do it all. And that seemingly is what is taking teams to that next level in college basketball. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And especially the way that we play, and we will rotate our four bigs. I think the strength of our team was obviously the senior backcourt that we had. You know, those three guys that we mentioned, and as well as Denzel Aberdeen, the fourth member of that guard tandem. And so they were awesome. But our bigs, essentially, if you look at how the way we play, we will rim run. We will rim run one big after we get a stop defensively, or the other team scores. We're trying to fly the ball back down the floor quickly. So one big will rim run, the other one will trail, and then normally what happens is one of the two guys is going to like play through the trail, and so when they do that, now all of a sudden now you have an opportunity to showcase and see what they can do with their skill set. They're either catching the ball, they can drive it, or they can play with the single side of the floor or the double side of the floor, which are normally the three guards. When you have great passing bigs like we do that can keep us in offense, they're essentially like your backup point guards, if you will. Walter did an unbelievable job, obviously, of orchestrating everything, but Condon, Hawk, Micah Hanlock in particular, and Ruben Chinyelo were incredible at being able to keep us in our offense, playing through that trail, playing high-low basketball, playing side to side, whether it be a throw and follow ball screen, a dribble handoff, or backdoor. They did so many different things, and really, what I'm really proud of with those guys, and I will say that I'm probably you probably know this, that I am in charge of our front court and our bigs. The thing I'm proud of more than anything is that, for the most part, most of those guys had like 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratios. So they rarely turn the ball over. They can make plays for themselves. They can make plays for others. They kept us in a lot of games. Condon had an unbelievable year where he, won 3 SEC Player of the Week. Thomas Hawk in the postseason was out of this world good. Helped us win the Maryland game, the Texas Tech game in the Elite Eight. So just proud of what these guys do. And they normally make a jump. Most players normally make a jump from year one to year two. But our bigs in particular, they make huge strides, huge jumps. And, they're going to have opportunities to play in the NBA, all those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, thank you for the segue. Speaking of jumping, I'm an old guy, right? I'm a little bit older than you. And I hate to say this and admit to it because I'm being very selfish and I want to try and grasp the younger generation and the way college basketball is now. But when I grew up, it was Big East, ACC. I was a huge Syracuse fan. So it was Boeheim, Carnesecca, Massimino, John Thompson, right? Those were, and it was, for me back then, it was easy to follow. It was easy to watch because you knew who was going to be there year in and year out. And now for me, and I'm just asking your advice to help me wade through this because it is new or relatively new. Now it's, it's one and done to the NBA or it's one and done to another school with the portal. So help me try and get a better grasp of this and try and be able to root either Syracuse on and I befriended Nate Oates when he was here. No offense, the Crimson Tide, and now you obviously the SEC is now my favorite league without question. But help me wade through this, and maybe for guys that are my age that described my younger college basketball viewing, help me wade through this so I can enjoy it a little bit better.
Well, we've gone through a transition. Really, the transition has to come from you and I, quite frankly, because I'm with you. I was growing up, same as you. You knew that on Mondays you were going to watch a Big East game, an ACC game, and a Big West game that was normally UNLV playing against Cal, UC Santa Barbara or whatever. Tuesdays was the SEC. Wednesdays was the Big 12.
Yep.
And, Saturdays was whatever they were going to show that particular weekend. It could have been any game on CBS. So, I'm with you. I grew up in the Big East, same as you. Those Carnesecca teams, those John Thompson teams, those teams with Jim O'Brien at Boston College, all the different Big East schools, all the rivalries, all the wars. Like, that was, and you can identify with those kids because you knew that they were going to be there for quite some time. Patrick Ewing wasn't thinking about leaving John Thompson early. Derek Coleman was the same. He wasn't thinking about leaving early. Those guys you knew that you can grow with. Nowadays, the thing I would tell you, Bull, is And a lot of my son does this too. He identifies with actual players.
Okay.
Like he loves LeBron James. So when LeBron James was in Cleveland and he was a little baby, a little boy, he liked Cleveland. When he moved to Miami, he liked Miami. Now he likes the Lakers. So more people are identifying with individuals than they are
Yep.
teams. But I think old school guys like yourself and me, at the end of the day, I still have a soft spot for Syracuse. When I watch Syracuse, I want them to do well. That was my dream school growing up. And so I'm not going to probably change that. Now, obviously, things have shifted for me, being in the industry and everything. But the only thing I can tell you now is, get a. You remember back in the day, you had like the Street and Smith magazine,
Of course.
right? Or the Dick Vitale college basketball.
Yep.
Well, try to find, a magazine and, study up on it, because year after year, like we're going through it right now. We're in the transfer portal, but we're also trying to retain our guys. We're probably one of the few programs that have the resources to be able to do that, and the ability to be able to keep, a lot of the players that we want. Like 70% of our team from 2023 and 24 season, when we lost in the first round of Colorado, those guys came back. And if we can do the same thing again next year and then add a couple pieces in the portal, we might have a chance to, run it back, all over again next year. And that's the way that you have to try to retain is that's where you have to try to build programs nowadays is retain the guys that you want, see, invest in them, keep them happy, and then add younger guys, into that mix and try to have them grow. Where it used to be flipped, as you remember, when the McDonald's All-Americans would come to a program, those guys were automatically starting around other players that have been in the program. Now, if you're a McDonald's All-American, you got to like really vie for your playing time. There wasn't one single freshman in the Final Four this year that started for any of the four teams. None of them.
That's
No
amazing.
freshmen.
That's amazing. And thank you for that explanation. So I want to expand on that a little bit, and then I want to go back to your relationship with Todd Golden because it's sort of a funny story. So with NIL and the portal now for you, would you say recruiting is easier or harder or just different?
It's different because it's more transactional. It's not as much about relationships. It's more about what can you tangibly offer a kid, whether it be playing time. I still think that matters the most, obviously. The financial piece is huge. So we're having, speed dating type of recruiting nowadays. You're trying to get to know somebody within a couple of weeks. Whereas when I was coming out of high school, it was a 2 year, 2 to 3 year relationship with me and Jack Armstrong at Niagara, or Coach Chapman at St. Bonaventure, or whomever was recruiting me at that time. And then obviously Tulane was about a year and a half or something like that. So it's not the same anymore. Um, you will find the occasion where there are kids that want to play for their flagship school. So there will be some built-in situations where you can get it done because maybe kids' parents or relatives or whomever went to those particular institutions. But for the most part nowadays, it's a little bit more it's a lot more transactional. It's quick, and it's not really as fulfilling on the front end. What is fulfilling is when you get them to your program, and then you get a chance to develop those relationships. As long as you choose the right people, and the way that we do it here is we look at three different things with a kid in terms of like who we want in our program: guys with great attitudes, great work ethics, and guys that really desire to be at the University of Florida, not just because of the things that we can offer you financially, but the things that we can offer you holistically.
I love this like inside feel to how you guys operate. It's super, super neat. Todd Golden. Let's go back to that. So everybody plays a bracket, right? When the tournament happens, everybody plays a bracket. We had a little bracket contest in our house where it was all the nieces and nephews had a bracket. My wife had a bracket. My sisters-in-laws had brackets. My brothers all had everybody had brackets, right? And there was it was like, I don't know, $5 or whatever it was to get in. but everybody watches now. It's kind of like the Super Bowl, right? When you get to the tournament,
Yeah.
everybody's watching because somehow there's some interest aside from the game that makes people watch, right? So my wife's watching Florida and she's like, that's their coach? He's got a baby face. He looks like a kid. He looks like he should be like the 11th or 12th guy coming off the bench. So talk about Todd Golden, what he is, your relationship going back to Columbia with him, and
Yeah.
kind of expand on now where you're at and how incredible this run has been for you guys.
Kyle Smith, who was the associate coach at St. Mary's for 8 or 9 years. When he got the job at Columbia, he offered me an opportunity to come and be his first assistant, his associate coach. And when I accepted, I knew it was going to be a tough challenge, but I was going to be doing it with a friend. And, Columbia has had zero history of basketball. I mean, very minimal. And so we take over the job and we build it. It's not on a national level, but, we know what we're doing on the inside of it. We're trying to build it into, a reputable program, which it ended up being under our tutelage. But in that time, he had always wanted to hire one of his former players, Todd Golden. And he said, I got a monster out there. I want to bring him in, but, he's not ready to do this as of yet. But when he is, we're going to bring him. This was first year that he was telling me this. Fast forward to year 3, Todd finishes playing. He was doing a sales job in San Francisco for Learfield and selling advertisement. And then finally he got tired of that, and him and Todd got together and they decided, okay, now it's time for him to come and work at the Division I level. So Todd and I spent a couple of years at Columbia. He was, awesome. He was great, energetic, fun to be around, very engaging, just a really good dude. And like when you're an older assistant or just an older coach, I was at that time my mid to late 30s, not old, but I was older than Todd. So we're just we talk about different things, whether it be sports, whether it be his life, whether it be where he grew up, same types of same but different types of background. Like he was a self-made player, coming out of Phoenix, ended up going to St. Mary's. I was, not the highest recruited guy, but I had a lot of success, and so we would talk about those things. He leaves to go to Auburn in 2014. I leave to go to Rice 2014, but we stayed connected. He ends up leaving Auburn to go to San Francisco, back with Kyle Smith, who we were both with at Columbia. Kyle takes the San Francisco job. Todd goes out with him as his associated coach. I go to Oklahoma, but we're still in constant communication. 3 years later, Kyle gets the job at Washington State. Todd gets elevated to head coach. Now he's got his opportunity. Now he's running the show. Todd does great at San Francisco. He was the one guy that could bring San Francisco to the NCAA tournament without having to win the WCC. And he did it, by savvy identifying of players, but also scheduling as well. He did a lot of things analytically that were really awesome that got San Francisco an automatic, a bid to the NCAA tournament. They ended up being a 10 seed as an at-large. San Francisco hadn't had an at-large berth in like 40 years. So Florida ends up identifying them. And there was a year in the SEC where they had like 5 or 6 openings. And he had interviewed with Missouri, LSU, even Mississippi State. But once Florida came calling, that was a no-brainer if he could
Game
get the
on.
job. So he did. Game on. Yeah, game on. I mean, who wouldn't want to come to a place like this? So I'm at UNLV, and like I said, I just left Oklahoma after 6 years there. And once he gets the job, he calls me and he says, "Hey, you want to run it back? Do it together." But once he got the job, it was funny. I'm in a conference room where I'm at UNLV, and I'm like, "This guy's going to call me about this job, isn't he?" And sure enough, a few days after things settle down, I'm taking my son to AAU practice. He calls and he says, "What do you think, brother? You want to run it back?" And so we talked about particulars, and we came to an agreement on contract terms and so forth. Made it happen, and obviously the rest is history. But Todd is unbelievable, analytically driven, but also very savvy in understanding people. He doesn't make it about himself; he makes it about others. He's astute when it comes to building a roster, managing that roster, and all of our pieces just were, really, really good. we had some I should say colorful arguments last summer about whether or not Walter Clayton could play point guard. Everyone's like, we just lost a really good player in Zion Pullen who went to the NBA. He was first team all league, but he handled the ball about 75% of the time. And then we were going to shift. Todd wanted to shift to Walter. And all of us as a staff, not all of us, we were just kind of going back and forth. We need a point. We need a point. Well, Walt is a point. No, we need a real point guard. Well, Todd's like, he is a point. And so we would just go back and forth. And so obviously Todd ended up winning the argument. And so we, we ended up just going in the portal, getting Elijah Martin to go next to Will Richard and Walt. And it was the most genius thing that Todd did because Walt was a guy that we wanted to come back, number one. Number two, he had always known that he could play the point because he did it at Iona when he was there with Pitino. He just hadn't done it on the stage. And Walt was so much different than what Zion was 2 years ago because with Zion, he was very good at setting up the offense, making the right play, making the right pass. He would never try to take chances. With Walt, he's this guy that, you have to guard 94 feet. He's going to throw it ahead. Sometimes he's going to turn it over. More often than not, he's going to make the right decision. He's going to cross the court with it, play with the ball, take it all the way to the rim. Sometimes pull up from 28 feet. So Todd saw all these things. And I think once we kind of all got on board, we realized we got a pretty special talent with Clayton at the point. And he just made everybody else better because of how dynamic he was. Well, Todd saw that, and credit to him for the team that we, have and built. And obviously we all have our part in it, with recruiting and so forth. But, we identified guys. He, was the final say in terms of who he thought would fit with this group. And we got it right. He got it right.
You sure did.
And it's very rare. Yeah. It's very rare when you get opportunities like what we had with the group that we had. You talk about that North Carolina game, Bull? Well, at the time, that game was in Charlotte. So it's essentially a semi-road game. We're up as many as 18. We end up getting down as many as 7. And we end up pulling that thing out in the last few minutes, kind of what we did against Houston.
Mm-hmm.
We started to turn them on, turn up the defense. And at that point, I thought to myself, okay, this is a pretty special group. And then we get into SEC play. We played Tennessee the second game after losing to Kentucky on the opening day of SEC play on that Saturday. We gave them a ton of points, but we come home to Tennessee and we beat them by 30 at home, and they were number one at the time. And I'm like, yeah, we can win this thing.
you saw that. You saw the signs.
Saw the signs,
yeah.
And as you go through a season like what we had, you start seeing different things and start seeing how certain people will elevate their game, other people will flatline. Nobody flatlined. Everybody just kept on slowly elevating. And when we started having injuries, and we kept winning through injuries as well, Walter goes out with an ankle against Tennessee. He sits out the next game. We win that game against Vanderbilt. Elijah has an abdominal strain. He misses 3 games. We go 3-0. Condon ends up twisting his ankle. Thomas Hall comes in the lineup. We still are winning. We won our last 12 games of the year, and we won 18 of 19 to close the season.
That's something to write home about. That's for sure. To like Grand Island, maybe, for instance. You're a national champion, man. Congratulations. Everybody from Western New York appreciates your achievement and only hopes for better things. And you got a new fan in Buffalo. That is for sure, my friend. Say anybody you want to say hello to here, go right ahead. And what do you miss most about Western New York very quickly?
2 things I miss more than anything. Definitely say hello and, always to my former high school coach, John Roth, who I'm just really tight with. We meet myself, him, and his son, Jeff. We are all in a group text together. Brendan Staub, Cliff Scott, my friends from high school, Kevin Glover, so many people, who I, love and respect as friends. And then obviously my family. My mom passed away in 2009, but I still have my aunt Lorraine and Uncle Steve and so many cousins up there, Rashawn and so forth. So a lot of people that I still love to this day. I don't get back home as much as I like to. I am coming back on April 25th. I'm getting the Distinguished Alumni Award at Grand Island High School. So it'd be nice to get back just to see some friends. And the second thing I miss, no doubt, it's my Bocce's Pizza, my Lenovo's Wings, my taco, Ted's. You can't tell me that Buffalo doesn't have the best cuisine and food in the country, and I miss it to this day. Now, what I do, Rich, is every Bills home opener, I will order my Bocce's Pizza, order two of them for about $125 after shipping. It's worth it. Nobody eats it. Everybody knows not to touch Dad's Bocce's Pizza and my Lenovo's Wings. So every Bills home opener, or excuse me, every Bills opener, I am ordering my Bocce's and Lenovo's Wings.
Fantastic, man. Well, we appreciate. Hold on.
Good. And you got to make. You're doing it right too, Bull. It is right over left.
That good. Woo! Thank God. Thank God. Carlin, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. And you, like I said, you got a new fan, and I hope at some point in the future we can do this again. I really appreciate it.
You just hit me up anytime, Bull. I'll be doing this thing for another 15 years or so. And then
awesome.
I'm open the door.
Congratulations again, my friend. Take care.
Thank you, Bull.
Thank you. Bye-bye.